in the CBD industry, cannabis.
Oh, okay.
I found out that he actually had closed deals without me.
So we're talking about massive monies. He's a snake.
None of those deals ever transpired.
The defendant hired me to be her attorney. She was terrified. She was desperate. She was convinced that she was going to go to jail.
Because of her, I lost custody of my children, which ultimately led to me only getting my kids 4 days every other week.
Plaintiff Jason Felix says his partnership went up in smoke. He's suing for $5,000 for an unpaid loan. Defendant Matthew Goble says he doesn't owe a dime because the plaintiff cut him out of million-dollar deals.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. This is case number 215 on the docket.
Okay, and welcome to all of you. Let's see what we have here. We have the plaintiff, Mr. Felix. You are suing your former business partner, Mr. Goble, is it?
Yes, Your Honor.
For $5,000 for a personal loan to help him pay his rent. Why don't you tell me about it, and then I'll get your side of the story.
Me and Mr. Goble, we worked together for the past year. We're in the CBD industry. It's a fairly new industry.
CBD?
CBD, it's the derivative of cannabis.
Oh, okay.
So we broker raw material
Yes.
in the industry.
Yes.
Work through the different supply chains.
Yes.
And, you know, the industry is tough. It's very infant. Not a lot of success has come yet. So when we started, Matt, I probably was 3 months ahead of him. You know, he was struggling. He didn't have much success with closing his deals when we first got going. You know, he fell behind on his bills. During that time, I got to know him. You know, he's a great guy. Met his fiance, been to his home, met his children. He said he needed money.
What did he ask you for?
He asked me for $5,000. I thought, you know what, he was going to have success soon. The industry was taking off, and it's been 6 months, and I haven't gotten paid back yet. So tried to document some of our conversations. I've got text message strings here that have, you know, numerous dates of when we're going to get paid. Nothing happened. He would tell me about a different deal that was coming up next week. Never transpired.
Okay, if I could just take a look at those statements.
Pass these off.
And I'm going to give you a chance then.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the beginning of February, you loaned him the money, and in April, you haven't been paid yet.
Correct.
And you answer, of course, had some hiccups. Been a great morning so far, so looks like we're back on track. Trust me when I tell you, I'd love to pay you in full by the end of the week. This is going on well into May. You're still saying that you would pay him back now. And you're here because you haven't been paid yet?
Correct.
According to you. Okay. Now, what do you say?
Good morning, Your Honor. So to be clear, we are dealing in CBD. To be kind of more frank on what that is, you have the marijuana plant, for those
Sure.
who may not know. You have the
Yeah.
marijuana and you have the hemp plants. CBD typically comes more from the hemp plant.
Yes.
It's used for medicines, you know, anxiety, or pain relief, some of the same sort of derivatives of marijuana
Yes.
will have as well.
Sure.
Except for you don't have the psychedelic sort of high from it. So we call it medicine, right?
Okay, that's fair.
So yeah, fairly new to the industry. In the beginning, when Mr. Felix and I first started working together, we were initially working on a THC trim deal, licensed THC trim. So that's actually with marijuana. I have an expansive network in the industry. I know a lot of people. So the value that I sort of bring to this relationship was my network. We had a deal that we were working, which I have evidence here to provide for you. And I found out that he actually had closed some of those deals without me. We had a mutual agreement, as a verbal mutual agreement, 50-50, that we would profit share our deals. I found out from multiple sources that there were deals getting done. Actually, some of the text messages that I have here as evidence will show that he was in contact with my buyer.
I could see that.
Right? And in regard to my text messages back and forth recently, is because really, for me, it was just hoping that I was trying to kind of keep things cordial, not get too crazy with it. And I was just kind of hoping that he would make enough money through my network that I'd introduced him to that, you know, he would sort of maybe just, hey, don't worry about it.
Okay, and you are?
I'm his fiance.
Okay, if you can stand up here. And you are here because?
I'm here to testify on behalf of my fiance as
Yes.
his witness.
Yes.
So basically, Matthew works at home
Yes.
and does his business over the phone. So when I'm home, I listen to these conversations.
Yes.
And the conversations were his high buyers telling and warning him about Jason Felix and how he's a snake, and to watch out because basically he cut Matthew from the deal when they had an agreement that they were going to profit share. And we're not talking about small deals, we're talking about lucrative deals that are massive money. So
Multi-million-dollar clients.
yes, so in regards, you know, Felix made way more than what Matthew had borrowed from him.
None of those deals ever transpired. If you really followed our industry, everything sounds great to make a couple $1,000,000 on a certain deal, but they never came to fruition. I'd love to say those deals closed, and you know, I wouldn't be you're in court for $5,000 if they did, but they never did, and
Okay.
there's no proof to show it.
On that issue, I'm going to put it aside, and let me explain why. There is no question that, as you admit, that he loaned you $5,000. That $5,000 wasn't paid back. You're coming to court and saying, well, I set him up on, I gave him contacts that could be incredibly profitable, millions of dollars, tens of thousands, whatever. As lucrative as that is, that's a separate issue. And the only way that can substitute for the $5,000 you owe him, even if it's much, much more, is if he agrees to it. Not that that wouldn't be a nice thing to do, but he must agree, and there has to be evidence of his agreeing that that will be the repayment of the $5,000 he loaned you. Unless you have evidence of that, then I have no choice in this case, or whatever deal you had on the side, but on the loan, I have no choice, short of evidence that he agreed to let that be the substitute. I have fined for the plaintiff in the sum of $5,000.
Thank you.
You both remain at the same.
I feel the verdict was very fair and appropriate for the situation. You know, I give people a second shot. I wouldn't mind working with them.
I'm not excited about it, but it sounds like maybe I have my own case now after this one.
Plaintiff Rebecca Tieppo is an attorney who says her client created big problems by trying to do her own legal work. She's suing for $4,124 in unpaid bills. Defendant, Kimberly Benson, says she had to take matters into her own hands after the plaintiff fell asleep during her case.
It's case number 143 on the docket, Tieppo versus Benson.
Okay. And welcome to both of you. Let's see what we have here. The plaintiff, Ms. Tieppo, you are suing the defendant, Ms. Benson, for $4,125 for money owed. If you would explain.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, Ms. Benson, the defendant, hired me to be her attorney.
Oh, okay.
To provide her various legal services over a period of time of approximately a year. I provided those services. I went above and beyond in terms of working with her to allow her to make payments because she needed the help. And ultimately, she made a couple of very small payments, but then she just stopped payment. And I think now she thinks that because she didn't get exactly what she wants in the case, that she doesn't have to pay my legal fees. She's taken complete advantage of my generosity, and I have to pay my bills too.
Was there an initial contract signed?
Yes,
and
I
I'm
have
going to
a-
give you a chance to speak as well.
I have a legal services agreement. May I?
Sure. Yeah.
There you are, Judge.
And this is for regarding a criminal probation matter.
Yes, Your Honor, that was the first initial payment that I paid her for $200 for the first time I hired her for my legal services.
Oh, so you hired her for that case?
Yes, and I paid her for that, and that turned out well. So
200 in the phone, and you were happy with the result?
yes.
If I may, I'd like to point out the fact that when Ms. Benson first approached me, she was terrified. She was convinced that she was going to go to jail because she had violated her probation.
Yeah.
She was desperate for some help. And I wanted to help her. I told her I was going to work with her. I charged her literally practically nothing for the help. And miraculously, she didn't go to jail.
I don't think anyone's disputing that
Correct.
that
She did a
worked
good
out.
job at that case,
She was
yes.
happy, yeah.
Correct.
So that's all good.
Thank
We
you.
don't have an argument there.
The issue,
What-
Your Honor, is that because of her, I lost primary custody of my children. And
Well,
that's,
that comes to the second case now.
Yes.
Is there a contract to hire where you hired her for the second case?
there was no paperwork signed, but there was a verbal contract he can vouch that he was there when I was on the
And
phone.
do you agree there was a verbal contract?
The contract that was signed indicates that originally I was going to represent her related to the probation matter, which I
Right.
did. But it also specifies very clearly that if there are any other matters that might be additional or unrelated, that she would still be responsible for paying. It specifies clearly what my hourly fee is, which is $2.75 an hour.
Yes, you are right. I do see this now.
But she did not
Client,
specify that to me. I'm sorry.
did you ever tell her that it would be $2.75 an hour?
Absolutely.
No, Your Honor.
But you signed it.
Yes, but I don't have the actual copy. Like, he was sitting there when the contract was signed. We met at McDonald's for that specific contract, and there was never any discussion that said
You
that I
met
had
at
to pay.
McDonald's?
Yeah, I met her at McDonald's.
It's my part-time office, Your Honor.
Is there a way I could look at that to see? Yeah, it doesn't, it wasn't specified that it was on there beforehand, so I don't know if it's in like 2 different colors of ink, if she wrote it afterwards, but that wasn't specified when.
Okay, there are 2 color of ink, but apparently different pens were used.
That's
But
correct.
that contract wasn't for the custody matter, which most of the money that I supposedly owe her.
You do say in your complaint, you admit that she paid you $400 initially and then made 2 $100 payments. So you do admit that you got $600.
That is not how it happened, Your Honor.
How did it happen?
I paid her $200 that he had helped me get
Yes.
to pay her for the initial probation
Yep.
violation. And then I met with her at the courthouse because the court made me file child support on my ex. So I had to hire her. I called her
Okay,
because of
so the only thing that is in this contract, in terms of this new case, it does say here in the contract, assuming that you saw it before you signed it, it does say in the contract, the client has retained the attorney here only for those services described in this agreement. If services are rendered that fall outside the scope of this agreement, which would be the new case, client agrees to pay for such additional services. Also, if a case proceeds to trial instead of resolving via a plea agreement, there will likely be additional costs. And that's where you put in the $275 per hour.
Yeah, which I did pay her the $400 for that separate case.
All right.
And because of the negligence done and incompetence of things filed that I've had to file myself,
You're asking to be paid money. Let's hear from you as to why you think she doesn't deserve that money, and then I'll get into other things.
the first motion that was filed from my ex is this one. Would you like to look at it?
Sure.
And all the points that were on there that were highlighted, they did grant him primary physical custody, temporary,
How many children?
3. And because of her, I ended up losing primary physical custody of my kids because there was supposed to be an objection filed
That's
within 21
completely
within
inaccurate.
21
Ma'am.
days.
Completely
Within 21
inaccurate.
days, this objection was supposed to be filed, as well as other motions that I've had to file on my own that she did not file through the court
Because she wouldn't, or?
because she would not file them, because she kept saying that if she wouldn't file them unless I gave her more money. And I was like, I gave you the money that was agreed upon for this custody case, and until something is done, which the objection got sent to the judge, but was never put in front to be filed to be seen, because she didn't file it properly.
Why didn't you file it?
Your Honor, that's a complete misrepresentation.
Okay, tell me.
I don't know what she's talking about, frankly. She had previously filed some things on her own without an attorney. There had been some problems with.
No, what happened was I lost my kids because of it. That's why we're here.
Excuse me. What had happened was that she had filed them improperly.
But that was
You
supposed to be your
You
job.
don't always know. No, this is before I came into the picture.
I never had to file any motions before you came into the picture because he filed this motion is why I had to hire you. And then I had to file every single one of these by myself.
What date did you hire her on the second case to be the attorney?
That would be July. I filed this motion, it had to have been before July 27th of 2018.
Of 18?
Yes.
All right. And this motion, which is your handwriting, which you filed,
Yes.
and that's already in August. So when she filed these motions...
There's one that was
In
in,
fairness, you were already on board.
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
the particular occasion she's referring to, because I knew that she had, limited funds, I offered to go to the courthouse and help her fill out the paperwork.
but you didn't
On
file
this
it.
particular occasion, I didn't
But you
ask
didn't
for
file
any
anything.
compensation
Sorry.
whatsoever. And
Which I ended up losing my children.
she did not follow through properly. That was not through any fault of my own.
And that did not get filed until the day before it was due. And she didn't even file it correctly. I had to type it out and email it to her, and then she just put it in front of the judge but did not file it for a court date. So they didn't even read it or look at it or anything, which ultimately led to him only getting my kids 4 days every other week.
Where were you sending her, or do you have the itemization of the work done in those for the $275 per hour?
I did send her something like that. Unfortunately, the only thing I have with me at the moment are some invoices that I had sent her for very, very small amounts because I told her I was willing to work with her.
You're saying in your statement that you're owed for 15 hours
Correct.
of legal fees.
Correct.
Where is a rundown of
There
the
isn't one
work for
because she
those
never did it.
15 hours?
I sent her something.
Yeah, but you...
The only
do you-
invoices I
do you
have,
have
Your
a
Honor, are
copy?
these
Do you
right
have a
here.
copy?
Your Honor, for some reason, I know I had a copy. I don't have one with me. She knows I did this work.
Your Honor, there was also another incident involving probation where she was supposed to show up for court, and I showed up and she did not, and she called to say she was not coming, and so I left thinking that it was going to be adjourned, and I ended up getting a warrant out for my arrest, which I'm still trying to deal with right now.
Your Honor.
On top of that, she
I'm not
called you
laughing.
many
This is not a
times.
laughing matter.
No,
This is
it's
my life.
not.
Then
but
why are
that's
you laughing?
That's pure fiction.
Just like you didn't fall asleep
Pure
and
fiction.
you weren't nodding off in court to where my mom had to say something to me.
Are you referring to me?
Yes, I am referring
That
to you.
never happened.
Okay.
That's ludicrous.
You're not suing her. You're coming in because you want to be paid.
Absolutely.
And on that issue alone, a lawyer who wants to be paid on an hourly amount has to keep, and you know this, has to keep a record of what you do every hour that you're doing it. And if I don't have that, I can't make a judgment on that because then I'm just guessing at how much you should be paid. And so without that document of how much she should be paid, even if her work was perfect,
Yeah. Which
I
can
can't
prove
make
that
a
it's
judgment,
faulty.
and
Sorry.
therefore this case is dismissed.
I'm shocked. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Her negligence put me in the position where I'm at.